Welcome back to your training. This is going to cover the first piece of Visionlink, which is our database and record keeping system. Within this first training, we're going to cover the very basics of just contact handling, getting our initial information. Future training for Visionlink is going to show you how to actually navigate the database and find resources. So for this training, piggybacking on your NICE in Contact, we learned that our systems are integrated. The phone number someone's dialing in on and in Contact is pre-populating inside Visionlink and then searching for any existing records. So as I said before, we're going to try to find out first what the caller's name is and see if we can attach to an existing record. A good question is, have you contacted us before? Or simply, may I have your name? By getting their name, you'll know whether or not you can add to an existing record or create a new client. Now we're going to be adding to an existing record in this case, so you can see what that looks like. But the system is not much different depending on whether you're clicking to create a new interaction for this person or create a new client for someone new. So I'm going to start by clicking on Create New Client Interaction. Now when this opens, it begins the first part of our contact handling system. So as you can see, we have client info, referrals, assessment, contact closure, and finally telephony. You will not need all of these pieces, but those are the tabs, and we always start with the client info. For our information, when this person called us, we added to a record so we could see previous interactions over on this side. If this was a brand new record, you wouldn't see this gray box and nothing would be pre-filled already. That's the only difference between creating a brand new record and tacking onto an existing one, is how much is already pre-filled and having options to see what they may have called about in the past. In a disaster scenario, however, we're not going to worry about previous interactions. We just want to confirm what we do have here. Usually our disaster handling is one of two things. We either are going to be collecting client information, or depending on the type of disaster or severity, we are not going to be collecting information. I'm sorry to be a bit vague about that, but it really just depends on the situation and what we're supposed to be doing. In a standard type of disaster call, we will ask for their first and last name. Please pay careful attention to spelling and using capitalization where appropriate for the first letter. The phone number may or may not be pre-populated. If the information that they're telling you is that maybe they're borrowing a cell phone and this is someone else's number, well, you can certainly just key in a new number for them. You can collect email address if you need to. And we don't ask about gender, but if they mention that they are male or female, you may check this box. Next would be date of birth, where you can key something in specific, and it will automatically calculate the age in years. If they're needing a different language aside from English, we do have ability to mark, any other languages that they're using, and we do have a language line service. In our experience, most of the disaster contacts tend to be in English, but if you do end up with someone who is not speaking English, we can quickly teach you how to utilize the language line. When it comes to household composition, we do tend to ask if there are any children in the home, any seniors in the home, anyone who is living with a disability, or anyone that's a veteran. You can select multiple items on this. And then if they are mentioning that the first example is disabled, you can ask if they are receiving disability or if it's pending and mark either one of those. And then when it comes to military status, you can mark former military or current military. Below that is simply a space for a zip code. The council is operating out of Roanoke, so I can certainly select that it's Roanoke there, and I'll choose Roanoke City. You don't need to validate this address, but by putting in a zip code, it allows it to save it to the record so we know the location of the person. These are what we call our demographics. And as I said, this is information that we collect most of the time. If we tell everybody we're just doing quick triage, we're just giving basic information, don't worry about collecting this information. You simply just leave all of these blank. None of these fields are required, so you just don't answer them. If the call is supposed to be marked anonymous, you can click anonymous caller here and it removes the contact name. You can also have the choice to remove the phone number or email address if the person doesn't want us to retain that information. Where this is critical is that we have the ability to text referral information or we can email referral information. So if someone is asking to have their phone number or email not included, then we cannot offer to share referrals that way. So you can offer to list someone as anonymous so that we don't keep their name, but still capture their phone number so that we can text them the referral information. So all of these demographics is just this first half of the screen. I'm going to unselect anonymous so that I can have the full record back to see. On this side of the screen, however, over on the right, there's a couple of boxes to select. So the type of call that you're going to choose is that this was a referral. Someone's calling for information, you're providing a referral of a bunch of information back. So you'll mark referral. Program skill is going to be pre-selected through our integration with the telephony system. And then there's some options for how did you hear about us. Likely they have found out in a disaster situation through some type of social media, print media, or news or TV. So that's going to be likely your option if they say, TV or radio, social media, or they saw it in the newspaper. We would select these. Otherwise, it's going to be a repeat caller. Usually, if this has populated someone existing, it's a repeat caller. And then method of contact will be phone for any of the contacts you're handling. And then whether or not they're calling on behalf of themselves or someone else. And this is pretty critical. Most of the time we're going to be selecting self, but if they are calling for someone else and we have marked someone else, we then need to note who is this other person they're calling for. Maybe it's their parent. And in that case, if they are not calling for themselves and they're calling for their parent, it would be the parent's information that we capture here. So you would be updating for that individual's information, that individual's date of birth. If there's a requirement for age or military status, this can make a difference when we're looking for a referral. Below that is the notes section. And our notes in a disaster situation will start with the name of the event. So we will have that it's a storm, and we will do a /, and then we can put that they are looking for shelter, and then they can put has pets with them. Something that helps us understand what's going on in this situation. But as you can see here, it's very short, only 6 words, and that's our entire documentation. Everything else will be based on the referrals that we find for this individual and what we share with them. But things that could be important here would be if they're looking for food, if their house was destroyed, maybe they need information about FEMA. You can include all of that just by simply typing it in. And this helps us see what the call was about, the nature of it at a snapshot. But again, this is not complete sentences. This is not very wordy. It's very quick and to the point. Always those starting with the name of the event. So depending on what happens, more recently we had Hurricane Helene. So it may start with just Helene or hurricane, depending on what we ask for you to start your notes with. That allows us to quickly isolate all of the records related to the event. But again, the referrals we provide will help us narrow it down from there. That is everything for part 1. So again, just coming over, we're looking at this client info tab. We got here by selecting that we wanted to add to an existing client that we had, or if we wanted to create a new client, we would have gotten here to that same page. So we are in client info, that's where we start, complete this information, and then complete this tab based on the other information you have. finish it off with notes. From there, the next place that we would go into is our referral tab, and that will be covered in the next video.